This guy, Thoth, he talked about being able to achieve immortality through controlling his incarnations. And what he would do is he would go into something called the halls of Amenti. Now, only the elite of the elites had these halls of Amenti. His father, Enki, had one, he had one, and Lil had one. And the seven masters also had these halls of Amentis. And these halls of Amentis were deep underground in some cases. The one he talked about was underneath the Great Pyramid. Now, I've been down this subterranean shaft, which goes down 65 meters, and then another 30 meters down beneath that. And there's more to go beneath even that.
There's more?
Oh, there's more.
And you know what's down there?
Oh, yeah. No, what's down there is you have chambers. They discovered them through a special type of a scan, a muon scan. They discovered these huge halls underground, underneath the Great Pyramid that extend out underneath Giza a mile. And all of them appear to be potentially empty. They won't tell us what was there or what wasn't there. But these halls of Amenti that were written 36,000 years ago by Thoth, they actually exist right now today. Underneath Giza, they discovered this plateau underneath the sands going a mile out underneath the sands of halls. That was about maybe 7 years ago now. The halls in that particular location were all empty, but the halls, the archway halls, were actually there or are actually there, which is wild. Now, there's a special shaft that I take people to when I take them to Egypt and take them on a special VIP private visit to the Great Pyramid. We spend about 4 to 5 hours there. And there's a shaft called the subterranean shaft that hardly anybody in the world has ever been into, and access is extremely limited. It's locked and chained and everything else. But when we go there, we take the chains and the locks off. We've got the key. And we take you down, if you'd like to go down this 65-meter shaft that goes down, all the way beneath the Great Pyramid, about the length of a football field. Then another 40 meters drop from there in a straight down angle, vertically going down. There's even more than that down there. So underneath the pyramid is this huge, it's like a whole nother world of shafts and entranceways and closed off doors and everything else, leading to other tunnels and shafts and other places that go underneath the sands of Giza to the halls of Amenti and many other places. This particular halls of Amenti, they claim is empty. And that's pretty interesting. I don't believe that it's empty, but if it is, okay, it is what it is. They're not going to let us get down there. But there's more than one halls of Amenti. Thoth talks about the fact that, for example, his father, Enki, had halls of Amenti. The seven lords also had these different halls of Amenti. Enki had a halls of Amenti. So these people were utilizing these chambers, these halls, and these crystal diorite boxes, which were radioactive, as some type of a tool or mechanism to recharge bodies while they were utilizing other bodies. And these bodies weren't stolen bodies. According to them, they fabricated their own bodies. In other words, just like the movie Avatar, they made their own avatars, which is incredible. Same thing we're trying to do today. Let's take a look at what Thoth is saying here. He says, I, Thoth, the Atlantean, master of mysteries, keeper of records, mighty king, magician, living from generation to generation, being about to pass into the halls of Amenti. He's saying right now in that particular verse, he's saying that he's letting you know who he is and what he's capable of and what he's known for. And he's saying that he's about to descend into the halls of Amenti. In other words, knowing me in this particular form, in this avatar, is only temporary. You won't see this avatar again because I'm about to go and transfer it to another body. I'll put this one in the chamber and let it rejuvenate for 100 years. He would put a body in a chamber for 100 years at a time. He's talking about getting ready to descend into the halls of Amenti, not so he can die, but so that he can actually live. These records of the mighty wisdom of great Atlantis, set down for the guidance of those that are to come after, in the great city of Kior on the island of Undal. In a time far past, I began this incarnation. He's talking about the fact that he had already began the incarnation in that body that he's talking to them in, from the halls of Amenti located on the Kior, on the island of Undal. So there's a place called Kior, and in this place, okay, there's a halls of Amenti, and it's located somewhere on an island, and the island is called Undal. He's talking about his ability to consciously decide when to incarnate. He incarnates at will. As a matter of fact, in the Emerald Tablets, he says he incarnates on and in the plane he desires. We're talking about planes, plane meaning dimensions. So he can incarnate in different densities even. This is a skill that takes a true ascended master and a true understanding of the physics of the universe, which according to him he has obtained. Thoth says, 100 times 10 have I descended the dark way that led to light, and as many times have I ascended from the darkness into the light, my strength and power have been renewed. Then he says, now for a time I descend, and the men of Chem shall know me no more. So he's saying at that point, that at that moment in that particular avatar body, he was going to descend back into the halls of Amenti, and he was going to put that body away, let it recharge in a chamber, while he left and used another body and went somewhere else to do another mission. So it says, understand here that the men of Chem refers to the people of Egypt. Yet notice that we get our word alchemy from this Egyptian name. He says that he has descended into the halls of Amenti, where his regeneration chamber is. Certainly, we can understand the concept of cellular regeneration. He says that he spent a total of 10,000 years, 100 times 10, regenerating his avatar over the course of many eons. Now, there's another area in Saqqara where they have another halls of Amenti. They call it the Serapeum, and that's underground, and that is Enlil's or Enki's halls of Amenti. I believe it's potentially Enki's Ptah in ancient Kemet, his halls of Amenti. And these are gigantic, megalithic granite and diorite stone boxes that are in these halls, these alcoves are so tight, the box barely fits in there. Now, to give you an idea of why this is important, because 1,000-ton diorite box or 1,000-ton crystal granite box has to be carved from a piece that's about almost 2/3 larger than what you carved it down to. So that means that, first of all, you couldn't roll a gigantic ball of granite down there because it can't fit. The second thing is you can't even fit it into the alcove or the hall. And the third thing is, so you can't carve it in there. So how did they get there? You can't even navigate them after you carve them outside and put it, you can't get them. They're too big to navigate into those alcoves, which means they were manifested there or teleported there. When you analyze these halls, you realize that they look like the halls or segments of modules of a machine. Listen, these things could be 30, 40,000 years old. This is way older than mainstream is saying 4,000 or 5,000. No, these things are tens of thousands of years old, and it's just mind-blowing. Thoth says he would put his body in these things, right? And he would put his body in there. He would create bodies. So we're talking about avatars. Now, this is something we can do right now in science. I can take a skin cell from you right now. In laboratory conditions, I can turn your skin cell into stem cells. Then I could take that culture of stem cells and I can grow them, and then I can create a synthetic embryo from your skin cell. Now I can take that synthetic embryo and I can grow it to a full-grown version of you, and then I can actually transfer your mind into that new body. That's what they were doing right then. Let's look at the ancient Egyptians, for example. During the time of ancient Kemet, before it was called Egypt, these pharaohs, which were demigods, they were half human, half Anunnaki. Kingship was handed down to them to be the liaison between the Anunnaki and mankind after the Great Flood. The Kemetic people were taught about this life extension, and they were taught how to mummify. That was the original origins of mummification. They weren't taught to be mummified, that the kings would be mummified for the purpose of going into the afterlife and sailing on the solar boat. That became a mythology later on with dynastic era Egyptians. The reason why these kings would be buried in the Valley of the Kings with all their gold, all their money, their wives, their cats, right? I mean, the maids and everything else was because they believed they were going to come back and use that. If you were going to go on a solar boat and head into the afterworld, why would you kill everybody and have your money there? Because clearly, you know, your money can't be used in the afterlife. It was because they were told by these beings who were their relatives that we preserve you. This is the technique to preserve your DNA. And we will clone you and we will bring you back and you will have access to your riches again. The true fact is that they thought they were really coming back to live life again here in the third dimension and regain control of their own kingdom. Now, prior to the Great Flood, we have the Sumerian Kings list, which is located in the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, England. This list is a stone tablet that is covered in four sides with ancient texts and cuneiform writing that has been deciphered for over 180 years, that gives you the ruling and the kingship of these kings and the years that they ruled. One king, Algar, will rule for 28,000 years. Another king ruling for 36,000 years. Another king rules for 14,000 years. These kings weren't dying. These are beings that had found a way to achieve a version of immortality.
Right.
Some of them could die because in these tales, in these epics, some are actually murdered and killed through battle and war. Sometimes they can't bring them back.
Okay.
Sometimes they can bring you back, but sometimes they can't. And Thoth the Atlantean, he says, I can incarnate at will on and in the plane I desire. He's talking about incarnating not only in the third dimension, he says he can incarnate into higher dimensions. Thoth says, purposes yet unborn in the womb of time, long ages I dwelt in the temple, learning ever yet and ever more wisdom, until I too approached the light emitted from the great fire. Taught me he the path to Amenti, the underworld where the great king sits upon his throne of might. Deep I bowed in homage before the lords of life and the lords of death, receiving my gift, the key of life. Free was I of the halls of Amenti, bound not by death to the circle of life. He's talking about the fact that at this point he had become a master of incarnation. In these words, Thoth explains he has now overcome reincarnation. He has now achieved the ability to consciously incarnate at will and transfer his mind into any new body. Now for a time, I go among them into the dark halls of Amenti, deep into the halls of the earth, before the Lord of powers, face to face again with the dweller. Raise thy high over the entrance a doorway, a gateway. He's talking about a stargate, leading down to Amenti. Few there would be with courage to dare it. Few passed the portal to the dark Amenti. Raised over the passage I, a mighty pyramid. He's talking about the Great Pyramid. Using the power that overcomes Earth's force. He's talking about anti-gravity in ancient times. He's talking about using the power that overcomes Earth's force. He's talking about using something that overcomes gravity. Anti-gravity is what he's talking about 36,000 years ago. Deep and yet deeper place I a force, house, or chamber. From it I carved a circular passage, reaching almost to the great summit. There in the apex set I the crystal, which is missing now from the top of the pyramid, sending a ray into time-space, drawing the force from out of the ether, concentrating upon the gateway to Amenti. So in some way, the apex crystal that's missing from the top of the Great Pyramid used to harness some type of cosmic energy, and he utilized that energy in tune with the pyramid, which is the machine itself, to keep the bodies or those chambers recharging the bodies or regenerating the bodies. It was one of the sources of power. He says, other chambers I built and left vacant, all to seeming, yet hidden within them are the keys to Amenti. So we see he has some fake halls of Amenti in case people stumble on some and discover them. And then they look empty, like there's nothing there. But there is something there for the one who has the key to access them and utilize them. So this is just incredible. This is an incredible level of knowledge. This is an incredible level of advanced and forward thinking. It's superior thinking. We are just now today trying to barely scratch the surface to this level of technology that they achieved tens of thousands of years ago.